So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was lace impressions and lace molds. I have some green rolled out for my holly. This is a placemat. Do you guys recognize that, right? You can use this for making lace impressions on your fondant. Anything will work to make impressions on your fondant. The light fixtures on your fluorescent lights make great things. You can buy those at places out of the garbage can. They usually throw them away when they're broken, and all you need is a small piece. But the one I'm going to use right now is by Elegant Lace, and they're very cool because there's all kinds of patterns and designs and different things going on, and it molds everything: fondant, gum paste, butter, cookie dough. The only thing I cannot get to mold in my lace impressions is ganache. I cannot get the ganache to come out. Chocolate will come out, butter will come out, cookie dough will come out, but I can't get the ganache to get firm enough to come out. I don't know why, but that's the way it works. So what I've done is I've just rolled my fondant fairly thin, pressing it in with the heel or palm of my hand. Then I'm going to flip it over, peel it off. You can see how nicely it comes off. A little stretch there, don't care. And I'm going to set it right there. This is where I want to get one of my brushes, and I'm going to use a little bit of gold color. And it's real gold, ladies, so it's expensive, but it's beautiful. And I want to just kind of brush it over that so that I have a little look to it. I can get more involved, but I'm going to move along. Then I'm going to take my holly cutter, and I'm just going to go ahead and find the right spot that I want and cut it out.
Do you apply any shortening or anything like that to prevent the fondant from sticking to the mold?
Nope.
Okay, great.
If your fondant's a little sticky, you might want to try a little cornstarch or a little powdered sugar, but these molds, that is the beauty of them. They are so easy to work with. And Elegant Lace Molds is one of them, or one of the more affordable ones. There's lots of other companies out there that do them, lots and lots of varieties. Elegant Lace I know about because I developed it with my girlfriend in a hotel room. Because what else do you do in a hotel room while you're traveling? Okay, so let's very quickly look for, I have no holly cookies. Do you want some of mine? Yeah, I have, if I could have like 4 of them, that'd be awesome. In the meantime, I'm going to start on my tree. Now, when I did the tree with the little snow on it, I just loved that. I thought it came out so cute. And here, it was so hard. It was like working with kindergarten stuff. So I took a little ball of my fondant. Thank you. Cookies everywhere in this place, and I managed to have none of the holly. That's good. So I'm just going to make a snake. Remember snakes from kindergarten? And I purposely made it with some little lumps. I don't want it perfectly smooth. I want it a little lumpy. And then what I want to do is I want to take one of my brushes, and I'm going to use just a really cheap little art brush. And there it is. In this container I have, and it's mixed with glitter, not on purpose, that was accident, but it's just a little vodka. I use vodka because it evaporates very quickly. It does not melt my sugar. So that's that moisture. Can you guys see? Am I in the right spot for you to see? Yeah. I'm just going to take that little bit of snake that I made, wiggle it around. If it's too long, I'm going to take my spatula, trim it off. Let's roll this out a little bit more.
Now, I know that you put buttercream on top of the cookie under the fondant.
Yes.
Is there any worry about that making the cookie soft?
No, it's actually going to keep moisture in your cookie
Okay.
and make it delicious.
Okay.
Yummy. That's a good thing. We do a cookie exchange every year with our local cake club, and we do minimum 10 dozen cookies, and we usually do about 13 or 14 dozen cookies so that we can ship a few dozen off to a charity of our choice. The last couple of years we've been shipping them to the young men in Iraq. We have a unit that we have a grandchild in, not my grandchild, but one of our members. And so we ship off dozens and dozens and dozens of cookies to those men and women. And it was funny because one of the members of our group, she brought something for refreshments, and her son said, "You can't take that to Cake Club." And she said, "Well, I'm taking it to Cake Club." And he goes, "Well, you can share it with the lady that made the mitten cookies and nobody else." So when a kid starts remembering which cookie's the good one, that ought to tell you something.
Listen, can we have you clear some of this stuff off just so this camera can get
Yep.
a shot of it? Just the tall things.
I'm one of those people, and the more space I have, the more I spread out.
Listen to one of our regulars, Leslie Lee Photo, would like to know if you ever use a heat gun for any use or a blowtorch.
Pastry chefs love blow torches. We think they're awesome. We use blow torches for things like our creme brulee, of course, number one. And then I was talking earlier about the Irish cream, not the Irish cream, excuse me, the French buttercream and the Italian buttercream and the Swiss buttercream. What happens when you refrigerate those, they're very hard to bring back to life and make them smooth and lovely again. And so one of the tricks that we use to do that, and see what I did there? I'm going to interrupt my thought process. I just made a little point for the top, called it good. You could add a little brown in there. I'm not going to at this moment. If you put your French, Italian, French is a little tricky because it's the egg yolks and not the egg whites, but your Swiss and Italian into your mixing bowl. It's got to be a metal bowl. And then use your blowtorch on the side as you're mixing. That will bring those things back to life. Okay, so what I have here is I have what's called disco dust. This is an edible glitter. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's edible. And I'm just very gently tapping it onto that portion of the cookie. I like to kind of do those things last because then I usually end up with glitter everywhere, including my face and on my nose. I did the one here in all white and then put the little snowflakes on it. To do the snowflakes, I have molds and I have cutters, and we'll just very quickly roll out something here so you can see how it's done. They came out with these cutters about 2 or 3 years ago. I just love them, they're beautiful. So this is a cutter, comes out, does the embossing. You should not wash these in water. They don't wash well in water. And then very carefully pull that off. My fondant's a little stretchy and sticky. I put that right on top of the glitter. I was hoping I could suck up some of the sparkle. You notice when I cut it, I give it a little swirl so that it has a nice cut and no pieces on the edge, and then I pop that out, and hopefully it comes off nice.
So how do you clean them if you can't use water?
You just use a little washcloth and kind of wash them gently. You don't want to
Like a damp washcloth?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't want to dunk them into water because then it doesn't work smooth. They should be nice and smooth like this. See how that works? Look how big that is. Oh, isn't that awesome? Love it. Okay, so on my other trees, you can put some colored things on them. Again, all I want to do is, let's do red this time. I did blue thinking that'd be awesome looking. It was kind of uneventful for me. I just want to roll balls. And the trick before you put them on, give them a little press so that they're not sticking up all weird. And again, I'm just going to do a little dampness. Doesn't have to be a big deal, just a little bit. I hear laughter. Should I be afraid? Okay. You could also use colored candies on these. I didn't put a star on there, but we could put a star on. Okay, here's what I want to show you about the holly, though, because the holly was kind of fun, and you do it as you go. So I've got my holly cookies. Let's get our buttercream here. And I'm just going to put a little piping of buttercream up the center. Going to take my cutout holly fondant. I need one more. Then I'm taking the end of my paintbrush or whatever fancy tool you want to use. I'm going to lay it down here, bring it right up the center. That's it. Pull it down on the edge. Make sure it stays where it's supposed to be. Right down the center. Let's add another vein or two in there. That was really tough. Oh, I work so hard. I should put some flour on my face while I'm doing this, right? I can't do this and read a book, though. Yeah, that doesn't work. I don't do too much veining on the ones with the lace because there's a lot going on there. You don't really need to do much else with it. It's kind of an old-fashioned look, I think. Kind of fun. How many people expect to see lace on their food? Not too many. And I like to tuck those edges in so I don't have icing slopping around. And then, of course, we have to add some berries to that. I'm going to go with the red, because I'm so creative.
You could try a different color, mix things up, mess with people a little bit.
Yeah, and normally I would, but I find that if I do the little sausage shape and then cut it as I go, my berries are more likely to be about the same size. If you are very concerned with having balls or berries or something that are all identical, and I say that because, you know, if you're decorating something with balls, you know, little round shapes, and you want them all to be the same size, you roll your fondant out on a pasta machine to the same thickness, and then you use a drinking straw and cut them out, and then roll them, and they will all be exactly the same size. Especially for that wedding cake that's covered with 3,000 of them. Because the bride saw it in a magazine and had to have it.
Shorty Biscuit would like to know, do you ever have any issues with the cookie dough shrinking or expanding when baked, and then when you go to mold your fondant, it's sort of a different size?
Generally speaking, you use a cookie dough that doesn't have a lot of baking powder or baking soda in it. That's what's going to do it. Too much sugar in your formula will also cause your cookies to spread. That's why the cookie formula I included is a really good one. It's a very good one. And you can see on some of these, they're a little bit larger, but not much. They're pretty close to where we're at. Anytime I'm sticking fondant to fondant, it needs to be wet. And I'm using my vodka or you can also use gum glue, you can use water, you can use vanilla extract. Not too much. The vodka, because it evaporates so quickly, you do not have to worry about melting your sugar. I can take the end of my paintbrush again. This is probably one of your better tools, is your little paintbrush, and I can push a little center hole for my berry. That does a couple of things. One, it makes it look like a berry, and two, it makes it stay where you put it.
I use vodka in my pie dough.
Yes.
Works really well.
It works real well, yeah. It evaporates very quickly and there's no aftertaste, yeah. Okay, on my gold holly, I want to add a touch of gold. Did I lose my brush for the gold? You're not supposed to cross-contaminate things, you know that, right? That means I have to get a clean brush. Dang. I want to just come in here, I got a little buttercream on that, and just give those berries just a touch of gold. Isn't that pretty? Ooh, pretty. Ooh, that's good. Good response. Yeah. Wake up the audience here. You noticed I had a little buttercream oozing out. You saw how carefully I handled that, got rid of it. Let's see, we got to start putting cookies someplace. We got cookies coming out of our ears. You hate when that happens? Cookies out of your ears. Cookies out of your ear. We'll just. Let's put a little gold on these. Oh yeah, that makes a difference. That needs a little gold star on top now. Okay. I have these cupcakes that I covered earlier for my flowers, and what I want to do is for the big sunflower type of thing, I want brown, which is over here. And truthfully, if you start adding brown centers onto your flowers and you're making bright colors, the oranges, the yellows, even burgundy, if you put in a brown center, you're making it a fall.
Instead of Christmas?
Or summer, or spring, yep. And your sunflowers have a very large center. One of the things that you can do for your centers to give it texture is you can either use like the zester portion on your cheese grater. That makes a great little center texture. It works great for making oranges too. But I don't have a cheese grater, if you can believe that. I have a zester that's very sharp. It won't work for that. So what I've done is just made a roll, and then I'm going to press it onto my light cover. Remember I told you to look at those? These are great for blankets and all kinds of fun shapes. And then I'll just make it nice and round on there, and then that can give me my center. One of those expensive items, you know. And if you go to, you know, a home supply store or something, they usually have them in the garbage can because when they break, they put them in the garbage. They don't think they can sell them. But so what I want to do is I've got that center, and I don't want to put that on first, but I do want to know how much space it's going to take up. So let's give myself some direction here. I put a little hole in so my fondant doesn't have to do all the work, just some of it. And I want to put just a little dab of icing on the back of each of those petals. That'll help it stick. I think you could also use the moisture on the back, but I kind of prefer the fondant when it, not the fondant, I prefer the buttercream when it comes to these. And let's get the big, let me get my big petals to put down on the base.
Can I ask you a quick question about the fondant recipes?
Yep.
That we have some viewers who can't use gelatin, and I know some vegetarians who prefer not to use gelatin. Are there any alternatives available to using gelatin?
There's also a vegetarian gelatin.
Oh, okay.
And that works.
Okay.
Because I've had students who are vegan.
Are there any alternatives besides gelatin in general?
Not that I'm aware of, but there are vegetable
Okay.
gelatins. It's a Japanese
that
they're looking for.
All right.
Yeah, it's not, and it's like, I want to say couscous. It's not couscous. It's like
Someone's saying, what about agar instead
agar.
of? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you. I couldn't remember. It's
All right.
So yes, you can work around those vegetarian requirements very easily with it. Okay, now I have some petals I'm going to put on top so it gives it dimension. I don't have to have hundreds, just a couple. Needs to stick though, so I still need a little dab of buttercream. And then I'm going to add that center. I'm just going to add a little dab of buttercream, and then I'm just going to put it right on top. I can also take I have a little orange powdered color here. I'm not liking that brush. I'm going to change. And just put on a little dab of orange into the center so it has more of a autumn appearance to it. Voila. Okay, let's go now with our poinsettia. Same thing with the orange petals. I just wouldn't make the center as large. And since I'm doing this, let's also do the cookie at the same time. And I'm going to put the cookie onto a white, round, and I have to tell you before I touch that, because I had the other colors on my hands, I'm going to wipe my hands off, otherwise I'll end up with colored white.
Lucinda, we're getting a handful of questions.
Okay.
Not atypical. How much would you charge for one of those cookies? And how much would you charge?
25 bucks.
Yeah, and how about your cupcakes? Like, if you were to say to people out there, could you give them a ballpark place to start for, like one cookie, one cupcake?
You're looking at, for this caliber of decorating, you're looking at starting at about $3 a cookie and a cupcake, and you could, depending on what your market will bear, if you can go up higher than that.
Yeah, it really does depend on the market that you're in.
Yeah, sure.
It really does.
But that's a good ballpark starting point. Thank
Yeah,
you.
they're very labor intensive. There was a group of ladies that recently took a class with me locally, and they were saying, well, they were selling their cookies, which were very ornate, for $1 a piece, and they couldn't get them on the table fast enough. And I said, no kidding. They should have been priced at $5 or $6 each. So you really need to be fair to yourself, And people have come to really expect quite a bit from us as decorators because they're starting to see so much of the wonderful things we can do on TV. And they don't get that people on TV are creating, you know, cakes that are $10,000, $20,000 cakes. So be prepared to pay, yeah. And if they don't want to pay, it's okay. They can go somewhere else. Okay, so for my round cookie, again, I'm not putting the icing all the way to the edge. I'm just going to put it to the center. I'm going to turn it upside down on this one to center it and push it down so that it's a little flatter surface. I did stick my finger in it when I picked it up. That was nice. Lovely. Smooth it out with the palm so it looks all pretty. And again, I'm going to come in with my glitter. I still have some on that brush. I don't even have to add any more. There's plenty. And I almost threw petals on the floor. Did you see that? So for my cupcake and my cookie, I want to have big petals on the outside and on the bottom layer, so to speak. And again, I'm going to use the end of my brush to help me keep centered. Let's go ahead and add some moisture in the form of buttercream onto the back of those. And you can see in the amount of time how those petals have set up. They're kind of holding their own. Piping with my right hand, trying to attach with my left hand, having technical difficulties. I like to have things that sit up a little more multi-dimensional or 3D as opposed to being flat on the surface, but you can go flat, you can go clean, you can have your style. It's your cookie, do whatever you want, you know. How often does somebody say to you, hey, it's your cookie, do what you want?
Question from me. What do you use for inspiration for new designs?
What do I use for inspiration? You know, things, it's funny, you start looking at things and thinking, oh, that'd make a great cake. I mean, Disneyland is a fun place to go. You can get great ideas walking down Main Street as to their wrought iron work. Fabric is another fun place to look for inspiration ideas. Plates, china, a soap dish sometimes. You're like, yeah, that'd be a great cake. Yeah, I just kind of wherever it shows up in some weird places sometimes. But for the center of my poinsettia, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and a little bit of that lime green that I made. So a little bit, okay? And I'm just going to smush it together, kind of, sort of, not so great. And then I'm going, because I have two of them, I'm going to divide it in half. I'm going to roll it in a ball, give me a cone, and then I'm literally going to take my paintbrush and start poking holes into it and pulling it in because I want it to look like a little bunch of buds or flowers in there. So it has this kind of free-falling look to it. I've got to pull that point off on that one. And I'm going to need just a little touch of buttercream. I'm going to set that right there in the center. Move in some of my petals. I want that to sit there for just a moment. I'm going to do the same thing.
So when you're making the cupcakes and the cookies like this, how long do they need to sit for a little while before they can be consumed, or can you just go for it?
Well, this is good with butter on it. They don't have to wait any time at all once you have them together to consume them. The biggest time you have to wait for is if you've done some petals that need to kind of set up so that you can attach them.
Okay. We have a fun question from one of our chat room regulars, Kaothea, who's also known as John. He lives in the UK, and he's asking, what's the most unusual request for a cake that you've ever had?
The most unusual request I've ever had was for a trophy that had the man's head as the trophy. And when I got done, it looked like a man's head on a trophy. It was pretty repulsive. And the man was bald. He didn't even have hair. Yeah, he was a bald man that I got to do that for. Yeah, you get some customers are the ones that will give you the most fun orders. I used to have a group I decorated for here in the Seattle area that they had a Mary and a Mary Ann, and their birthdays were both on Halloween. And so every year I had to come up with a new Halloween idea that included 2 ghosts, 2 witch, 2 skeletons, 2 dancing M&Ms, 2, you know. Okay, so what I've done now is I have some red. This is actually kind of a burgundy. I'm brushing it just into the center of those petals. Again, I mean, it just adds some dimension to it. You don't have to. And these are powdered food colors. Powdered food colors can be used for candy making also. And you can mix them to color, but they're kind of pricey to be doing that, so I kind of stay away from that. Okay, so there we go. We've got our poinsettias. And if I want, I can add a holly leaf in there too. That kind of will add to the overall winter theme. Okay, what else have we got here? Oh, we got to do some Santas and elves. The reindeer, yeah. Okay, let's start with our reindeer. Brown. Or chocolate. You can flavor your fondant chocolate with cocoa powder. Choose a good cocoa powder.
Right. One of our audience members is curious how you got started in this. Did you apprentice anywhere?
No, I started very young, and I come from a fairly good-sized family, and we liked cake. We used to use it a lot as dessert, lunches, that sort of thing. And I just always wanted to do something artsy with it. That was me. I used my cake decorating to go to college and become a graphic artist. And I got into graphic art because I wanted to learn how to write on my cakes without making them look like a 3-year-old had done it. So I put myself through college with my cake decorating, thinking, okay, I'm going to be done with cake decorating as soon as I get my college degree. You know, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I worked in the field for several years as a graphic designer and graphic artist. And pretty soon I thought to myself, you know, all I ever say to my kids is, come on, hurry up, mommy's got a meeting. Come on, hurry up, mommy's got a meeting. I thought, I don't have to do this. I can go home and decorate cakes and make as much money. So that's what I did for a lot of years. So, okay, I have the heart-shaped cookie. I have the heart-shaped cookie cutter. I've cut out the brown. I am looking for my decorating bag. I keep having these senior moments. I might need to have somebody help me keep on track. Didn't cut that out very clean. Put that on top. Make sure it's on there nice. I always used to like to tell people I used to be a perfectionist. Not anymore. For the center face, I'm just making a little ball, and I'm going to kind of triangle shape it. Not a big deal. Okay, and I want to flatten it out a little bit. I don't want it sticking up too much. And this is where I have another one of those very cool tools. So I took my red drinking straw and I trimmed off one end so that I have like a little smiley face. So I'm going to take that, and this is another thing. I mean, this is a good size straw. For babies, you use a real thin little straw, and these makes eyes and little smiley mouths. So this is an eye and a mouth maker. And I'm going to take this and tuck it into that thin end. I'm going to pull it up just a little bit, pull it down so he has like a little mouth. Take my other great tool, which I'm using my paintbrush, but truthfully, I gave everybody also a skewer. These are great little tools too. So I'm just going to pull up a little mark there in the center. With animals, bears, that sort of thing, you want to put a little center mark too by it. Go back to my paintbrush so I can put some moisture onto my fondant. Attach that, center it up. You don't want them all crooked. Okay, then we need, I'm not going to wad up my brown just yet because I need to have ears. And here's how you do ears and eyes and things that are the same, okay? Because you want them to be the same. I roll one ball. I take my spatula or my palette knife or my sharp knife and I cut that in half. Now I have two ears. And to make two ears, I'm going to roll a ball again. Everything starts with a ball, have you noticed? Isn't this great? Roll a ball. Then I'm going to make it into a cone. Then I'm going to take my paintbrush or my fancy tool, bring it out towards that end, so I have an ear. Roll it out to a cone, take my fancy tool, pull it out towards that end. Two ears. I'm just going to let those sit there for a moment, okay? Then we're going to go ahead and do an eye, and then I'm going to use a little tiny ball of white. Cut it in half with the clean, not a dirty. Cutting it in half is sometimes the hardest part. Roll it into two balls. Now here's a trick. If I take my ball tool, now I have a wide end and I have a small end, and I put in my eyes where I want them to go. Always do your left eye first if you're right-handed, and do your right eye first if you're left-handed. Why do you do it that way? Nobody even said why.
Well, we were all thinking it, so why do you do it that way?
It is easier as a right-hander to match up the left side than it is to match up the left side to the right side if you're a right-hander, and just the same if you're a left-hander. So always do the opposite of whatever you are handed. Makes it easier. I'm going to smush that in. I'm going to try to bring it up a little bit. Okay, now we need the black. Just a little tiny ball of black, not a big one, little tiny one. Roll a ball. Did you guys see a pattern happening here? Okay. Cut it in half. Little dot of moisture. If they're not perfect, we can move them. It is possible. Use my ball tool to smoosh it, get it in place. It's kind of looking like a monkey now, isn't it? Guess what? It could be a monkey. Pretzels. Everybody has pretzels. Awesome. Now, what you want to do for your horns is you just want the little part, which gets to be quite a challenge. I break a lot of pretzels before I get a good horn. We might call that a good horn. It's not my favorite horn, but we're going with it, okay? Because I've got other things to do today besides break pretzels and look for. Break pretzels, that almost sounds like I'm doing something. No, that one's not going to work. I gotta break another pretzel. Here we go. You might have to get really creative on your pretzels. Let's turn it this way. Tuck it underneath that fondant. Now I want to add a little bit of moisture here. Whoops, wrong brush. You have to be careful with what you're drinking while you're working on this stuff too, because it's not uncommon to dip your brush into whatever it is you're drinking. And then there you are, and you've dipped, lemonade into your brush off broken pretzel. Oh, I forgot the nose. We need to have a nose. And we're making him Rudolph. He could also have a little black nose. You could have just a few Rudolphs in the group and not have a bunch of them. You could just have one or two. So it's a little ball, dampen the spot on the front, and attach his nose. Ta-da! Isn't that cute?
So the pretzels, did they go under?
They go underneath the fondant.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then all your broken ones are lunch.
Yes, we are getting hungry, of course.
Now, Santa, he's the same, they're pretty much the same thing. Santa and the elf are pretty much the same thing, except we start with a flesh tone. There it is. I have all these. And the elf I did with, the elf we did with a little green. Let's move these. I'm just going to spend a moment and tidy so you can see what it is I'm actually doing as opposed to all the stuff. Okay, so for the Santa and the elf, I did the elf in the green, and then the Santa, we did him with the red. And here's something else too that you can do with this little tool that I made, is you can make little eyelashes by cutting into the fondant. There we go. So our deer has little doe eyes. All women try to have doe eyes. Big eyelashes, big eyes. Okay, so take our flesh tone. Flesh tone is essentially terracotta. So if you have terracotta, if you don't have terracotta, you want a little orange, a little yellow, and a touch of brown, and you want it to be very light. Terracotta is a cool color at Christmas time. You can do things in terracotta and then brush gold on them. And I'm thinking Three Wise Men. I have this vision of Three Wise Men done in terracotta with gold brushed on them. That would make an awesome cookie. You could also do that with the manger scene too. That'd be kind of cool, if you're really artsy. Okay, so we've got our flesh tone. You want to cut out. I'm not going to do both the Santa and the elf. I think that if you see one, you got it. I'll do Santa because he's a little trickier than the elf. It's quiet. Are you guys okay?
Oh, we're doing great. Everybody's engrossed in watching what you're doing. So
Okay.
everything is great. So.
But you may want to lean back just a touch. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, I've done it this way. You're seeing it this way, right? Guess what? We have to think upside down. There's Santa. There's the elf. Here's our red. I spend so much time doing this because if your fondant isn't kneaded, it doesn't work. And so, you know, flatten that out, roll it. And then all I want to do is make my little Santa hat. Now, one trick I will tell you about doing the faces is that our faces are divided into thirds. So our mouth is at the bottom third line and our eyes are at the top third line. So if you look at this as a face, here's your mouth and here's your eyes. And I found that if I put a little crease right here, it helped me put it all together. That's where your eyes are going to go. And then your ears go right in between your eyes and your mouth. And truthfully, your ears go to the top of your eye and the bottom goes to the bottom of your lip. And if you look at people, everybody is shaped like that. Anatomy 101. You didn't know that was coming today, did you? Okay, I'm going to trim this hat down just a touch. I'm going to use this wheel. Brush on some moisture onto there, put my hat on. We want some white for fur and a beard. Again, I'm going to roll that snake. You didn't know that everything you were learning in kindergarten meant so much, did you? Trim up that edge. Anything that doesn't trim up nice, you can tuck it under, smooth it out. That is the beautiful thing about fondant. It is really quite workable. It'll forgive you and bend. If you're putting it on a cake, it's very unforgivable. Every wrinkle and fold will show. Okay, for the beard, I didn't roll it out. I left it I just kind of pressed it. And then I used the bottom portion of the heart cutter. And I want it to go like here, but I don't want quite that much beard showing. So I'll just kind of trim it up. Let's get it wet again. Now I did add little pink marks for the cheeks and for the mouth. And I discovered that if you add the mouth after you add the beard, it works better. If you put the mouth on beforehand, then you're trying to work around the mouth, and you know, it just kind of gets to be a hassle. For our mouth and our beard, we're using just nothing for paste. I got a little ball. I'm going to roll out one end to a point. I'm going to roll out the other end to a point. That's even too big. Try it again. Attach the little mouth with a smile. Let's turn this into a mustache. Now the mustache on your elf and your Santa, when you put it on, if you, little moisture there so it'll stick. Doesn't take much, just a little. If you have it come down flat like this, they look kind of grumpy. If you curl it up, it almost makes them look like they're smiling. So curl up the little mustache a little bit, okay? My flesh tone, I'm going to add my nose. Little tiny ball, unless you want Santa to have a big schnoz.
So do you ever ship these? Do you have customers you ship them to?
They ship actually pretty well.
Is there, do you have any recommendations for packaging?
I wouldn't ship it today. I'd want to let these sit for a day and at least set up a little bit. And then the tighter you can pack them, the better they ship.
Okay.
So even as, I always say popcorn, and when I say popcorn, I'm thinking packing popcorn, and they have that edible packing popcorn. Did you know that? That you can ship.
Edible?
Edible.
I know there were some that you could like put water on and it'll dissolve.
Yeah, and that's edible. So you can use that for packing food. Or you can use popcorn. But if you pack it with that kind of stuff. Now, if you're packing it with popcorn, real popcorn, I would put them into little bags so that the salt and oils don't start. Yeah.
It would absorb those flavors too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
The trick is you don't want them to shake, rattle, and roll. You want them to be very firm in where they're going. So pack them tight.
All right. Thank you.
And I have one friend that she does big cookies that she ships to her grandchildren, and she decorates with royal icing. And when you decorate with that royal icing, it's like a brick. You're shipping little bricks. They'll hold up real well. Okay. Little cheek. Little rosy cheeks. I'm sorry, what? Move back? I was trying to line them up, make sure I had them right. And the eyes, again, we're going with the white. In a ball, cut in half. You guys starting to see the pattern here?
Yes.
Now, one of the thoughts that I had is after doing all these cupcakes and cookies, if you wanted to set them out on display at the holiday times, if you put them onto a tray or something and set them up like a wreath with a bow, wouldn't that be fun? You have to make sure you have enough for every child, because if you're short a cupcake for a child, whew, that would be traumatic. They would always remember that. Aunt Lucinda didn't have a cupcake for me when I was 10. again, for the eyes, I'm going to mark where I want them using my little ball tool. Get it moist. And truthfully, you can texture the beard, you can texture the hair, I can add ears. I added just regular ears on Santa, little elf ears on the elf. Let me show you how to do the elf ears. And then you'll know how to do the Santa ears. They're easy. Not that big, because ears are not that big, even elf ears. Do a tiny ball, divide it in half. Roll it into a ball, then roll it into a cone. So we have a little point. Do the same thing on the other ear. And then when we go to attach it to the head, it goes between the mouth and the eyes. I'm going to put black on those eyes too, don't freak. And I'm going to set that ear very carefully up, and then set this one up. And then when you go to attach them to the head, take one of your paint brushes or your tiny ball tool and then just punch it in. And you have an ear. Isn't it amazing how giving an ear something makes it look natural, real? Eyes, little tiny ball. Too much. The older I'm getting, my vision is getting not so good, and it's harder for me to do these little balls perfectly in half. I kind of don't like this growing old stuff. In some respects it's nice, in others it's not so fun. Left eye first, because I'm right-handed. Then the right eye. And I'm going to use my ball tool to put them into place, spread them out. I'm going to use my handy little smile maker to add wrinkles around his eyes. Not eyelashes, wrinkles. Okay, I'm going to call Santa good. Okay, we got a few more minutes. What else can we cover here quickly that we haven't done? Oh.
Do you think maybe you could give us a tour of the ones that we haven't seen?
Sure.
And bring those up and talk about some of the techniques that you might use for the other ones that you are not going to get a chance to get to.
Okay, so the first one I was going to talk about real quickly is the ornament. And all I have done is created the little topper portion out of fondant. Do it up ahead of time so it sets up a little bit. I just used a little flat disc, poked in some markings on the side, added the little loop at the top, and then for the actual cupcake itself, I made sure I used a cupcake that had a nice mound on it, put a nice layer of buttercream on top, cut an extra large circle because it will really take up a lot of your fondant, and then smoothed it on. And then the thing that makes this the piece de la restante, or whatever, if I could speak French I'd be in trouble, is I used blue pearl dust. And you can also use just a super white pearl dust. You could also use a pink pearl dust. There's lavenders. There's all kinds of colors that you can use, but the blue with the snowflakes is rather cool. I use the blue fondant on the base, okay? And then I just use my snowflakes with a little bit of the pearl dust on top. Isn't that fun? And not hard. So the ornaments, I mean, I use the snowflakes, but you could use stripes or dots or whatever your little heart desires. This one I used another type of texturing from a light fixture and then just put on the stars with the glitter. The Rudolph cupcake is very similar to the cookie, except instead of shaping the face as a heart, I just shaped it as a cone. And then I used a different color fondant on top for the muzzle. And again, if you get your pretzels right, they're awesome looking.
Could you talk about the candle cookie? There's one person who's very, very interested in it.
The candle cookie. Oh, I can't see it. So this is just a ball of white fondant put onto the background that's purple and blue mixed together with white to make it look like swirls of winter. And then the nose is just orange rolled into a carrot shaped, and use your spatula. When you're rolling the carrot, just use your spatula and put a few little markings on it so it looks like a carrot. Make it a little longer than what you think you need, because then it will stick into it. And then for the scarf, again, I just used some fondant and kind of wrapped it around to look like a scarf. Put some markings on it. The hat, the hardest part of this little thing is the hat, because when you make a hat, you have to think about the brim, and you make more like a U shape as opposed to a whole hat. You make just a U shape. If you don't get the top right, add a band around it, and that'll make it look good. Fun. And glitter, because it's got a sparkle, right? The little candy cookie. Again, what I did with this one, covered the cookie all in white, and I took it all the way to the edge, or, you know, good as I could get. Then I cut out another circle in the red and used my sharp knife or my wheel and just cut those little circular shapes. And the trick when you put it together is to make sure everything meets in the center so it looks like it's a twist. That was a little more difficult than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be real simple, you know. And I'm thinking, I might have to do math on this. Some of these cookies, I used the lace, like we did on the other ones, and the holly, the gold colors. A lot of it has to do with your color, what's, you know, kind of fun and unusual. I did that for the stars. There's one, oh, the turkey. Oops. I have a couple of turkeys here. I have several turkeys. I have a cooked turkey, and I have a raw turkey. So this one, all I did was the colors cut into the heart cutter, and then molded a teardrop shape for the body and a teardrop shape for the head, and put a little point for a beak on it. For this cooked turkey, this is actually really fun to do also in caramel. So if you mold it in caramel and put it on, because then it has that glistening baked look. I just shaped the body as a non-pointed cone, all right? Then I did 2 non-pointed cones also, and then stuffed the pretzel onto either end. And then the stuffing is just broken pretzel. And you can see as many pretzels as you're breaking, you'll have plenty of stuffing. I added a couple of carrots to it just to kind of give it some fitting in and color there. And what else? We've got this cookie here. I just had fun with it. The fall leaves, I basically did them in a yellow fondant, and then I brushed the green color on it, and then brushed the red. But I used a veining tool, and veining tools are very cool. This is a veining tool. Ah, so you literally, it's a, tell me the name of it. Silicone, thank you. It's it's mushy, yeah. It's a silicone mold. They're very pricey if you buy them pre-made. They're very durable. They're worth it if this is something you want to do, okay? If this is something you're not going to do forever, you can also wash a leaf out of your yard. and carefully do that. Another thing that makes a good veiner is corn husk. And if you husk a ear of corn and then tape the husk together with like masking tape, when it dries, it will stay flat and you can keep using it. So you can buy some very high-end tools, or you can keep it very affordable. One of the things I wanted to show you is that you can have really basic, easy type of cookies, and then just a few of the decorated ones on top, and it makes it look fabulous. The other thing, like I said earlier, is just putting them into a little bag with a bow and making it be a special gift. You could do that for Halloween if you wanted to, for the people who know you. You couldn't do it for strangers. They'd lock you up for that. The other thing, more cupcake things here. For the pumpkins and the apples, I just shaped a pear shape or a round shape. Use the handle from your, not so much that plastic one, but a nice smooth handle from your paintbrush or your ball tool, and it's very simple to do. It's so simple, in fact. Let me show you. So I just take my ball, my dirty ball, and I take my brush, start in the center, roll it down. Now, what I did with my pumpkin, once I had it done, I cut it in half. So I had one for one cupcake and one for another. I did the same thing with my apples. And I just took my green, rolled out a little snake, twirled it around, put it on. Took my brown, rolled out a little snake, cut off one end, thinned it out, so I had the, what is that called? The stem. And the other thing that works kind of cool with these is if you, I don't have the color, if you brush a little orange color in there. I mean, if you want to get detailed. If it's not that big of a deal, it's okay, you don't have to. So, very simple, very easy.
Can I, on the cookies that look like angels and candlesticks, do those have any fondant on them, or is it just like a cookie cutter and then you paint it on
these
them?
Candlesticks. So basically all I did was, I took my fondant, rolled it through my pasta machine, took my cookie cutter, and I rolled out my fondant very thin. I don't like having the fondant too thick. Number one, most people don't like to have that much sugar, and it kind of just tracks. And it's also just more work and money for me. So I rolled it out thin, cut it out, gave a little press to make sure I had all the indents, flop it out, and then I paint it literally with my food color and vodka. And I use my palette, my artist palette, and when you mix it with the vodka and then paint, it dries quick enough that it doesn't melt your sugar. And it has to be vodka or some sort of alcohol. You cannot use rubbing alcohol. Rubbing alcohol is incredibly toxic. You will kill people if you use rubbing alcohol.
All right.
So think in terms of peppermint schnapps or rum or something. Vodka's good because it really has no flavor. It doesn't leave anything behind. It evaporates.
Great.
Any other questions? Want me to keep moving?
Well, we've got a few things to
Okay.
talk about, and one we wanted to mention your DVD, Beautiful Borders. And if you wanted to talk about this for a moment, I know it's available through your website.
It is. It's available through my website. That DVD is great. I basically tell you how to prepare your cake, get it ready to ice, how to ice and not so much decorate as much as I talk about borders. My borders I started doing and I've become well known for when I broke my ankle. And I was still having my bakery and still having to produce cakes. And I discovered that while I had this broken ankle, if I was working on a border and sitting on a stool, I could sit. I wasn't standing. So I started playing a little game with myself as to how many tips I could use to create a border. The other thing was right about that same time as we started coming out with all the lace molds. So we were putting all this beautiful, elegant lace things onto our cakes, and we were creating shell borders, which are pretty dull. shell border, and that's the other thing I do in the DVD is I talk about how to do your basic shell border, your zigzag border, your star border. So I do real basic stuff, and then it goes clear up to pretty advanced stuff. And the awesome thing about it, of course, is you can stop and pause and take a closer look at it. Again, it's kind of a jumping or a starting point for you. It's not the end all to be all. I always think outside of the box, think outside of the box. That's kind of what I was trying to do today too, is, you know.
Right, no, this has been
Start
awesome.
here, think outside of the box.
And then I know you've got a bunch of workshops you do in the Seattle area, and then you travel for them as well.
I do, I travel a lot. My next class is scheduled for the 28th. That will be the poinsettia class. We'll be doing gum paste poinsettias. And that's here locally in Bothell, Washington. The next class I'm doing after that is in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, so you're going to be a little bit warmer for the winter.
Yeah.
At least for a little while.
Usually it rains. But that is very cool. I get to teach Disney chefs while I'm down there. Anybody who would like to go to Florida is welcome to participate in those classes. They have all kinds of artists that come from all over the U.S. to teach there. I'm trying to think what the name of the connection is. I'm not remembering right now. That's horrible. You'll have to check my website to find out.
But the details for those upcoming workshops are on your website.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and then I'm also scheduled to be teaching locally again at Green River Community College. So lots of things. And if you want me to come teach, I'd be happy to. I know how to.
Well, I know our audience
Get
has
on a
enjoyed
plane.
this, so,
So
I think they're ready to
good.
have you back.
Good. Awesome.
I'd love to see if our students in the studio could hold up one of their pieces, because the internet's like, how'd they do? How'd they do? And we're going to have our cameraman just pan through. So grab one of your pieces that you like and show it up. And
Oh, look at her cute
we'll see what we
Santa.
got.
That's adorable. Very nice. Oh, good. Good. Look at the tree over here. Nice.
I tried to make the scene from The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. This is supposed to be Whoville. I didn't do people though.
Good job, you guys.
very nice.
And they did good at not eating, too. I didn't see anybody eat or lick or nothing.
Nobody was snacking. It's amazing
Yeah,
that we've
very good. I'm
been here for 3
impressed.
hours and not snacked
Yeah.
on anything yet.